SharePoint. That's good. Now you can actually upload it, I'm sure.
Really?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, would they come or not? In my mind. Can I ask something?
Go
Hello.
ahead. Yeah, go
Has
ahead.
my DP changed? I'm still having that bracelets mad girl.
But
Has it
just so you
changed?
know that the meeting is now recording. Anyway, it's not that, but it's the AI lady with a big head.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It has changed. That's it. AI with a big head.
So if you upload it, this part will go inside the upload.
Nah, you like trim it
I
out.
can crop it out.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson.
Yo, Joshua, beg, check DM, check DM.
I beg, tag all of them to me, I beg.
All right. Okay, good evening to those who are already in the meeting. I just want to allow 5 more minutes for the other participants to join, right? So yeah, if after 5 minutes they are not here, then we proceed without it. Thank you for your patience, okay? Good evening, everyone, once again. Welcome to another session of sorry, right. Welcome to another session of the Elite Makeup session. Sorry. Uh, this lesson will be on DCIT 207, as you already know through the timetable. In tonight's session, we'll be covering concepts from the Student's Manual from Chapter 4. This is in efforts to do us or to get prepared for the lesson coming this week, or perhaps for our exams or IEs ahead. The lecturer hinted that this will be very key to the rest of the course, so we should take it seriously. So we'll be covering it for that reason. Due to we trying to master the CPU simulator and then the LMC in our previous sessions, now that I consider that we have satisfactorily mastered the concepts, at least the basis of it now, we can freely use those software without much trouble. We overlooked a few of the sessions, that's session 1 and 2 from the main lesson. So we are going to get time to cover those 2 sessions, or perhaps one at a time in future lessons. But for today's lesson, we'll be working on the Student's Manual. Also, while working on the CPU simulator and then the little on computer, we came to understand a lot of the things that the sessions 1 and 2 mentioned. Albeit we didn't talk about things like interrupts, etc., etc. We still have covered considerably a lot in terms of the type of CPU special registers there are and how registers work and a few concepts that are tied to that. But we still have to go back to those lessons and go in detail and then also go over some of the concepts that are very key to the course. In today's lesson, we will be focusing on basically how the memory stores data with different types of memory there are, and also how this affects CPU performance. And if time permits, we'll also be looking at AMAT calculations. So without wasting much time, let's get right into it. So the principle of locality and hierarchy foundations, understanding how memory organization shapes central processing unit performance. Right. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to distinguish between temporal and spatial locality using real-world analogies. So take note of that as we work. You should be able to analyze the physical trade-offs between cost, speed, and capacity in memory technologies. Evaluate the structure of the memory hierarchy, L1 to L3, so level 1 to level 3 to main memory. Calculate performance metrics like hits or miss ratios and understand the memory wall problem. So if you have any questions, do not hesitate to raise your hand and ask, okay? Key vocabulary you should look at as we discuss the concepts. Temporal locality. Temporal locality is the processor's tendency to access the same data or instruction. So if the computer frequently or the processor frequently uses a particular piece of data, then we say that's its temporal locality. It's a hand up. Oh, that's it. All right, so let's proceed. Then we have spatial locality. Spatial locality is the tendency for a processor to access data items that are located near recently accessed items. We will understand this later even better as the lesson progresses. But for now, temporal locality, when the computer or the central processing unit accesses a particular piece of information or piece of data over and over and over again, it demonstrates temporal locality. Whereas spatial locality is demonstrated when data that are stored close to each other or data items that are located close to each other are frequently accessed. That's a spatial locality. So it has to do with space, or what do we call it? Yes, space. Then we have volatile memory. Volatile memory is a memory type that needs power to keep data. And once power is off or power is gone or power is taken away, it quickly loses the data that it holds. So we know that RAM is a volatile memory storage. Therefore, this means that RAM needs power in order to store data. Then we have the memory wall. The memory wall describes a gap between the central processing unit's speed and then the access speed of memory, limiting performance. This means that in theory, the central processing unit should be able to outpace or perform faster than it does, even in your average computer. But the major problem is the fact that inside your central processing unit, data has to be constantly stored in particular places so that they can be retrieved and then used to, run programs and instructions. But due to the fact that memory has a particular speed at which it moves, even though the central processing unit wants to move very fast, it still has to take into account how fast memory allows it to retrieve data and then store data. For that reason, there is an increasing gap, or there is a wall between the speed at which memory is accessed and then the speed at which the central processing unit can actually move. This is what is described as the memory wall. Now, here's a principle to help you understand locality better. So we said there are two major forms of locality. There is the temporal locality and there is the spatial locality. Temporal locality. Now, think of it this way. In a kitchen, you keep items that you frequently use. For example, the salt you use, the pepper you use, the oil you use on the counter so that they can be quickly accessed. The central processing unit keeps recently used data nearby. So for example, your central processing unit is looping through programs, and then it is using a particular data value, like maybe a sum. It is using that variable over and over and over again. It is going to store it using temporal locality so that it can easily retrieve it. And that's the same thing happening in this kitchen analogy. So because we frequently use a spoon or a ladle or frequently use a pepper, maybe we are preparing a particular dish. Maybe you are preparing fufu and then maybe you want to you want to be adventurous one and you're doing something like fufu, you want to mix it with some shito, I don't know, adventure. In the process of doing that, you say, okay, with every single pound I do of the fufu, I add some shito to it. This will mean that the shito shouldn't be too far from me. It has to be close by. So everything I will need in that instant, the spoon I'll need to pick up the shito, everything I'll need to be, do that work set within that particular time will be held very close to me. So this means I am storing it in temporal locality, just so that because I know I access it frequently, it is closer to me than things that I access less frequently. So it says the CPU keeps recently used data nearby, and this demonstrates temporal locality. And then in spatial locality, it's similar to grabbing related items, spices, spoons, chopping board together. Central processing unit fetches data that is physically close to recently accessed data. So when data values are stored together, data values that are held close to each other are easily touched when we are trying to reach onto another data. The analogy in the kitchen this time will be when you have stored your knives and spoons and everything together. When you are reaching into the stack, the very place where the spoons are held is where your knives are held. So then you deciding to go in for a spoon of demonstrates spatial locality. Mr. Joshua, I think a couple of our people are saying they are unable to join. There is Calvin and there is Abigail as well. So please check that for me. All right, let's proceed. So then the spatial locality talks about grabbing related items all together. So I go into the central processing unit, the computer knows that, okay, this person has written a program for an addition. So let's use that. This is not what it builds on, but think of it that way. The person has built a particular program for addition. And in the program, we accept one input and then we accept another input, right? Therefore, the computer will say, okay, since I know he's constantly entering two inputs, when I go to activate or to call on the variable for the first input, I might as well carry it along with the second input and bring it closer so that when it is ready to be accessed, it will be easier for me to reach and I wouldn't have to overstretch. This will increase the access and reduce the access time, making the central processing work faster. So when similar items are grabbed together or are called together by the CPU, due to their space or how close they are, we call that spatial locality. Whereas when things that are frequently used are kept closer to the central processing unit, we call that temporal locality. It says these principles help the central processing unit efficiently manage its working sets. the active data it expects to use soon. The working set is the active data it expects to use soon. Now, temporal locality, further in detail, temporal locality means data used now will be used again soon. The central processing units repeatedly execute loop instructions. This implies that keeping recently used data in fast cache memory, not slow main memory. So due to the fact that the computer understands how fast each memory allows it to retrieve information, it tries to hold data inside memories, very important data that are often accessed. It tries to hold them in data spaces that are also having quick access times. So if I know I will be frequently using this thing, I'll not go and hold it in a location that has 5 locks. Because 5 locks will mean that every single time I want to use it, I have to open all 5 locks. So back to our kitchen analogy. Let's say you have a kitchen, and then because of how your children are very stubborn and worrisome, you decide to keep all the sharp objects at a high level, at a high place with locks holding all things together. Now, if you are frequently using your things, maybe you are preparing stew, and you know that whenever I am cooking, I use salt. Will you keep the salt in the region where the knives and cooking utensils that are dangerous to your child are held? The answer is no. If you do that, then you have something wrong with your head. However, on a normal, you won't do that. Reason being that you know how frequently you will need the salt. If you put it in that location where all those things are held and then there are several logs holding them in place, every single time you need the salt, you will have to go through all these logs and then retrieve the salt, and when you're done, put it back. So the central processing unit works like this. It knows that some instructions are really needed. For that reason, it doesn't store them in areas where retrieving them will take time. So it stores them using cache memory that are very close to itself. And this type is called temporal locality. So it says this implies keeping recently used data in fast cache memory, not slow main memory. Spatial locality means if a data item is used, nearby items will likely be used soon. So the central processing unit access arrays and sequential instructions. Thus, when fetching 1 byte from RAM, we fetch a whole block, anticipating nearby data needs. So then this image right here demonstrates temporal locality, where one single data value is repeatedly accessed, and for that reason, it is kept very close to the memory. So then this here, one data. So maybe the data held here, the memory is using it constantly, or the CPU is using it in processing constantly. So it keeps accessing it in loop form. This is temporal locality. Then we come to the spatial locality. Now the CPU wants to fetch this particular data value here, held here. But it also considers the fact that whenever we fetch this data value through our processing, we realize that it makes use of this and that. And even if it doesn't make use of them, the program often also references these things as it is pointing to this particular data value. So instead of fetching this single data value, it fetches all of these guys, anticipating their use very soon, so that when it is time for them to be used, they have already been fetched. They will just be quickly referenced. Does that make it clear? So data currently held data being accessed frequently or over and over again demonstrates temporal locality, whereas data values that are anticipated to be addressed when one particular value is picked demonstrates spatial locality. Right. Are there any questions up to this point before we proceed? So since there were no responses, I'll assume there are none. So let's proceed. So spatial locality means if a data item is used, the nearby items will likely be used soon. The CPU's access arrays and sequential instructions. That's when fetching 1 byte from RAM, we fetch a whole block anticipating nearby data needs. So now let's answer this question quickly. A program executes a for loop that iterates 100 times over the same variable sum. Which principle of locality best describes this behavior? A program executes a for loop. We know the loop structures in C++, right? So let's mention one of them. It is a for loop. It iterates or it repeats 100 times over and over the same variable sum. Which principle of locality best describes this behavior? So is this temporal? Is it spatial? Is it sequential? Or is it random access? So raise hands to contribute if you know the answer. Okay, so since no one is willing to raise their hands, let me call at random. Mr. Ebenezer Nyakun. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm trying.
Yeah, go ahead. Feel
So
free.
I think it's temporal locality.
Okay, Mr. Ebenezer Nyakun says he believes it's temporal locality. Raise hands if you agree with that answer. If you agree with that answer, raise hands. If you do not agree, keep hands down. Okay. Mr. Iwa Calvin also agrees. Aside him, who else agrees? So the rest of you, I assume you go with another answer. So then let me ask you what those answers are. Let's start with how many people are on this meeting? Okay. Let's start with Mr. Emmanuel Boabeng. So please, do you agree? You don't agree with the answer, your hand is down. So please, what answer do you think it is? Oh, Mr. Boabeng, you're here in the spirit, eh? Okay. What about Madam Daniela? Do you agree with the answer or you think there is another thing to it?
Please, I agree with him, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, you do. Okay. Then I'll assume you all agree with him. Mr. Calvin, is your hand in agreement or you have something else to say?
I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say.
All right, that's cool. So then, yes. So this demonstrates locality, and then the answer is temporal locality. So just as we mentioned earlier, when a single data value is bound to be accessed several times, the computer will store it in temporal locality. And then this demonstrates this quite well. Now, this is a pyramid that shows the hierarchy in which data is accessed, showing their speed and also their capacity. That's their storage. Down, but rather decrease as to move up. So starting from the bottom, let's move from bottom to top. Retrieve information, moving and out. So this is the error Half an hour. Okay, hello, please, can you hear me now? Wow. All right. This, that was strange. Okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what exactly happened, but I'm sorry. Okay, let's proceed. Then let me go back one slide. Okay, we did this, so let's stay here. I was saying the memory spaces or the type of memory that the central processing unit uses has been arranged or has a hierarchy. The hierarchy describes their speed and then their size. In terms of speed, we can arrange it this way and say, moving towards the top of the pyramid, the memory types get faster, and moving towards the bottom, they get slower. If we want to arrange it in terms of size, on the other hand, moving towards the top, it gets smaller. Moving towards the bottom, it gets larger. So then towards the top, it's ordered in order of increasing speed and reducing size. Whereas towards the bottom, it's ordered in order of decreasing speed, yet increasing size. What this means is the fastest type of memory there is that the CPU uses will be the registers. The registers have very fast access time. They allow the central processing unit to be able to take data instantly, use it for processing, and store data to instantly. Then we have the cache memory. We have the level one cache. Level one cache is very close to the core. It's very close to the central processing unit. So it gives the CPU a short distance to travel to retrieve data. Then we have the level two cache, which is also close to it by a little farther than the L1 cache. So it's close to the processors and it allows the CPU to be able to access data very fast as well. Same applies to the level three cache, but it is outside it. Despite it being very close, it is still outside it. So it's not on the processor. Then we have the main memory, which is the RAM. So then what the RAM does basically is to store data just like the other ones. However, the RAM is slower than the registers, far slower than them all. Despite it being fast than your average storage, it is still slow. And then we have your main storage, that's your disk storage. So I was saying earlier before the network cut off or whatever that was happened, that if you buy mobile phones, it's common. You can have ROM space up to 256 gig, 528, or what is it, 560, 256, wherever the other one goes. What's after 256? What happens? You double 256. What do you get? 512. Is it 512? Yes. So you can have up to 512, you can have 1024, that's 1 TB of storage. It keeps going up. Yes, your RAM is always lower than this. So 4 gig, 8 gig, 12 gig, 16, 32, just smaller amounts. The reason is simple. The reason is that despite the fact that RAM is constantly being used, it is also constantly being cleared. And also, the speed at which RAM is accessed is quite fast. And it doesn't hold data values forever. It holds them temporarily. That way, it can be easily erased, and then more important data or more in-the-moment data are held within it. However, your disk storage is used to hold things that you will keep forever. And then such things must be stored and then held so that they shouldn't even be held in volatile memory, so that once you lose power, they disappear. They should be held in spaces where they can be kept actively even without power. Right. So remember, the largest memory storage will be your disk storage, whereas the registers are the smallest. Your disk is the slowest, your registers are the fastest. Cache memory come after registers. Level 1 cache outspaces level 2, and level 2 outspaces level 3. RAM is also faster than disk storage. Let's proceed. Volatile memory. So characteristics of memory and the trade-offs. What are we offering in to gain the speed that we have? RAM, despite it being fast, it needs power. So RAM is a volatile memory, so it needs power to keep its space. So it means it trades off everything. It trades off its size, and then it trades off its involatility so that it will be able to hold data faster. But then if it moves that fast without power, it loses all data it was holding. So that's the trade-off. It needs power. That's the trade-off. And then the non-volatile memory, like the disk, is slower, but it holds data without using power. So it means you can either have the data and the speed, but lose it once there is a power outage or once you lose power. Or you can have the data in great amounts. It will be slow, but without power, you still store it. That's the trade-off that you have to face when you're deciding between storage. The central processing unit's speed outpaces memory speed. This creates what we call the memory wall. So I already talked about this earlier. And it shows here that memory speed is relatively slower, as you can see. It's relatively slower than the what we call the central processing unit. What this means is we'll assume time is on the x-axis here. This is how fast memory travels with time. So this is how fast it travels with time. And then the performance at which, or the speed at which it moves, is right here. Whereas the central processing unit is capable of moving faster than it. Therefore, there is a big disparity between how fast memory runs or allows access of data, and then how fast the central processing is potentially able to run. This creates what we call the memory wall, where the central processing unit is capable of going faster, but due to how slow the access time of memory is, it binds the central processing unit or restricts it to moving slower. It says the high capacity RAM is slower due to costs. So fast tech is larger or expensive, and decoding logic, longer signal paths, more gates. So if you want your data to be faster, or if you want data access time to be faster, sometimes you might have to include more data paths using different types of logic so that it can move even faster. But this will also mean that if I broaden or if I make my space larger for RAM, if I am able to ignore the cost that goes into producing RAM and I'm able to make it larger, it will be easier for me to access data from a pool of RAM storage. Because since most of the data is exposed, I can easily reference a data that is stored at a point. So sometimes increasing RAM space might actually do you a lot of benefits. Not even sometimes, it always will. And this is why when you're running heavy games on mobile, sometimes extending your RAM space, using RAM itself, extending it might actually be beneficial to the performance of that game. So this means you have created a larger surface area, making it easier for the central processing unit to access data in different regions at a time. Rather than narrowing the chamber and forcing CPU to, or also when you narrow the chamber, there is so little data that can be held at a time. So the amount of data that can be referenced immediately is confined, or it is narrowed down by the RAM space. So increasing RAM space might actually or will actually speed up access time for RAM. And then it is harder to produce. That is why it is mostly not done larger. However, in the absence of these things, you will need to use decoding logic to create longer signal paths. That will mean you implement more logical gates. This is also a problem. Let's proceed. So structure of the memory hierarchy. On the central processing unit core, we have the level 1 cache memory. It's the fastest, smallest central processing unit cache, and it uses SRAM for immediate data. What does SRAM mean? Someone should remind us, what does SRAM mean? We mentioned these things were mentioned in level 100 during our, what course was it? Was it 102 or something? I do not recall. But what does it mean? SRAM. Let's be cooperative. If you know what it means, please remind us. We have all forgotten it. You need now correct chips. Yes, Mr. Nyako Ebenezer.
Okay, so please, the SRAM stand for static random access memory, which means that it's very fast, more expensive, and lower capacity density. Then
Yeah,
no refresh needed.
right.
That's what I understand.
Excellent. So then static RAM, as he said, is SRAM. And then it is faster, but producing it is very expensive. And this is why, despite its speed, it is not commonly used. So it is used for things like developing the cache because of how fast or the speed that is required in handling cache. And he mentioned a few of its features that it is using a flip-flop storage, what do we call it? Elements, and then it needs no refreshing. It is faster, it is lower, it has a lower density, it is more expensive, and it is used for cache memory. And then as opposed to SRAM, we have DRAM. The DRAM uses capacitors for its functions, and then it requires refreshing, it is slower, it has higher storage space as compared to the SRAM, so it is also more dense, and then it is cheaper, and it is also used in the main memory. So the type of RAM that is used in making level 1 cache, level 2 cache is the SRAM, and it is faster. That is why it is generally used there. But the reason why it is not used memory-wide across all is due to the fact that it is more expensive to make. So level 1 cache makes use of static random access memory for immediate data access, whereas the level 2 and level 3 also do same. So it says the level 2 and level 3 are larger, and then they are the slower level 3 cache shared by cores acts as a RAM buffer. Okay, acts as a RAM buffer. Can someone explain what that means to us? Acts as a RAM buffer. So we've been hearing buffer, 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 this buffer, that's Professor Abdul uses a lot in his lesson. So what does a RAM buffer mean? Let's be contributing. If you know the answer, just support. If you don't know, so that's cool. Just move. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Yes, Mr. Joshua, a RAM buffer. What is it?
Okay, so it keeps data temporarily whilst transferred.
Excellent. So then, good. Mr. Venix, you talk. Mr. Nyaku, your hand was up, but Mr. Venix, talk. What do you think it is? Or you agree with what he's saying?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Wow. Okay. Okay. What about you, Mr. Nyaku? Do you also agree? Are you sure? So you're telling me
Yeah,
that
the
is
same,
correct?
the same thing, the same thing.
Uh, Right, so that is correct. That's indeed correct. So then the buffer serves as a storage point or a temporal storage point during access time for memory. Therefore, a RAM buffer is a temporary storage area in main memory, which is the RAM, which is used to hold data while it is being transferred between two different components or processes. So that is basically what the buffer is. So the level 3 cache serves as a RAM buffer, and then it holds data temporarily shared by the cores, and it acts as the RAM buffer as it is moving data or processing data. Let's move on. Then we have the main memory. The main memory uses the DRAM. And what does the DRAM stand for? Or have I already mentioned it? We have static random access memory. And DRAM is Mr. Nyakon. Yes, Mr. Eben, you can talk.
Okay, so the DRAM stands for Dynamic Random Access Memory.
Random access memory, and it mirrors everything that the other does, but in an opposite way. So we mentioned the absence of refresh here, but this one uses refresh. It has larger capacity, it is more dense, etc., etc. It requires periodic refreshing. So the DRAM tends to be slower, and then it has a larger capacity, while these guys are faster and they have a smaller capacity. They require no refresh, but then DRAM does. Then we have the disk storage. The disk storage is what is used for holding ROM data, etc., etc. The hard disk drive it has a huge capacity. We've already talked about that. So on your phone, you know what the space is, and then it has slow access, and it is used for long-term storage. Long-term storage. Right. Now, memory characteristics and trade-off. Back on that again. I think we've already discussed this slide. Let's proceed. So increasing the capacity of a cache memory always increases its access speed. Is this true or not? A cache memory. If we increase the capacity of a cache memory, will it increase its speed? If it is true, why? If it is false, why? It's a question to you all, so let's attend. We are learning, right? So let's do not the questions you answer here sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they will help you retain a lot of information. So let's be contributive. If you are told it's wrong, it actually sticks. Next time you wouldn't repeat that. So the question is increasing the capacity of a cache memory, increasing how much it can hold. Still a cache memory will always increase its access speed. Is this true or false? So let's start with the true or false parts. How many of you believe it's true? Let's vote now. If you believe it's true, raise your hand. Let's see who is right and who is wrong. So if you believe it's true, raise your hand. You cannot be in between. You are either for the true side or for the false side. So I'll mention names and then you raise hand. Madam Monica, do you believe it's true or false? If it's true, raise your hand. If it's false, keep it down. Right, so she believes it's false. Right, so Mr. Calvin believes it's true. Mr. Emmanuel believes it's true. What about you, Mr. Joshua, Auntie Daniela, sorry, Auntie Abigail, Mr. Joel, Auntie Vida, Mr. Emmanuel? Okay, so this leads me to believe that Mr. Ebenezer and then Mr. Emmanuel and then Mr. Calvin are following the lessons very closely. But the rest of us, we are following, but we are missing out on some details. So let's see what's happening here. Is this true or false? So the correct answer is it's true. It looks like you used the wrong stamp. So there are two questions. The answer is on the next slide. It's asking you that is it false? Are you saying is it false because it's larger? So those who are saying it's false, is it because it is larger caches require
Yes. So
more?
I agree that it's false.
You agree that it is?
Yes, it's false.
It's false. Oh, okay. Okay. The answer has not come yet, but he says he agrees it's false. Okay, let's keep that in mind. So why do we think it's false? Are you thinking it's false because the larger cache requires more complex addressing logic and physical distance for signals to travel, which slows down access?
Yes, because
Or do you believe it's
because of the larger cache. Yes.
all right? And now those who believe it's true, do you believe it's true because more space means more data is available instantly? Is that the reason why you believe it's true? Is it because you believe if it is wide open, we can easily reach into it? Let me use an analogy from chemistry, right? We talk about solubility of substances. And you know that if you put a cube of sugar in water, it dissolves far slower than when you put powdered sugar in the same volume in water. And why is that? The reason is simple. When the sugar is powdered, more of it is exposed to the water at the same time. Therefore, there is simultaneous dissolution of all the particles. However, if you are dealing with a cube of sugar, the water has to corrode or erode the outer coat of the sugar before it slowly gets into the inside. This speeds up the sugar dissolution in the one that is spread out, the powdered one, but it rather slows it down in the one that is in cube form. And the same idea is what is being applied here. Now, the faster addressing, the logic gates implementation, and etc., has to do with the RAM. However, when we increase the space of cache, it actually means that you can access several data simultaneously. So the correct answer is more space for cache means faster access time due to instant availability of data from different sites. So yes, the correct answer is true because more space means more data is available. So it looks like only one person answered and stayed by his answer. Yes, Mr. Joshua.
Please, why is it true? Because by my understanding, I think it's false.
Yeah. Okay. Why is it true? Because you believe it's that's true. Okay. Let me take it again. Okay. We are using a port. Let's think of RAM as a port. And inside the port, the memory or the central processing unit can reach all the corners of the ports, right? If we are able to make the ports bigger, what does this mean? More space is open, therefore a lot of things are exposed. So if the central processing unit wants to access a particular data value, it can just reach into it and touch it almost immediately due to the fact that more region of the RAM is exposed. This doesn't need implementation of different logic gates. That will only have to do when you are trying to fit the same speed into a smaller space. That will mean you will have to use different logic gates to expand distance through which the CPU runs. So then, when you expand the size of the level 3 cache or the cache memory, right? This will mean that the CPU can simultaneously touch particular data instantly. So it does not need to go through data 1 before it gets to data 2, because now data 1 and 2 are all standing at the same region. There is broad space. So it can easily access the data value faster. More space means more data is available instantly. And also remember, a cache memory brings data closer to the central processing unit, right? So if it has bigger size, it means it can bring more data closer to the central processing unit. And if more data is close to the CPU, access time will now even be faster. So increasing the size means we can carry more data and access them instantly. Mr. Joshua, is that clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The way you did it, I feel like it's not clear. The cache is used to bring data closer to the central processing units. The closer data is to the CPU, the faster it can be accessed. When the cache is small, it can only bring smaller pieces of data closer to the CPU. This means the CPU is restricted to that small data. So even if it wants to access data later, because the cache is too small to hold that data, it cannot access it in that time until the cache goes to bring it. However, if we increase the size of cache, the amount of data that can be stored at the same time closer to the CPU also increases. What this means is that it increases the access speed for the CPU. That is when we are dealing with the cache. Okay, we are still dealing with cache. It's not like we have moved on to a different memory hierarchy. So if we move from L1 cache to L2 cache, that's when it becomes a problem. Because L2 cache are made of slightly different material, and they also have different capacity values. And then for this reason, they are slower than the L1 cache. Keep that in mind. But since we are talking about a particular cache, we have not changed the speed. We merely increased the size, and then the speed stayed constant. This means more data is readily available to the CPU because that particular memory location is still closer to it. Just that this time it is bringing more food to the table at the same time. So there are a fewer number of times it has to go to the kitchen, making processing units or processing time faster, making access time, sorry, faster. That's the reason why it is true. Let's proceed. Which of the following accurately describes the principles of locality or memory hierarchy characteristics discussed so far? There is more than one answer here. There's more than please mute. Okay. And there is more than one answer here. So let's try to fish them out. Those who have not spoken, this is your chance to shine, okay? After the lesson, I'll be momoing you some toffees. Toffees. So if you want your share, you may raise your hand and speak now. There are four options here. Which of them is true or properly talks about locality that we've discussed so far? One, increasing cache capacity increases access speed because of complex addressing logic. Two, Fetching a block of data from RAM when the central processing unit requests a specific address. Is that truly a behavior of the locality principle or the memory hierarchy we have discussed? Do we really fetch data from RAM when the central processing unit requests a specific address or the data in a specific address? Keeping frequently used spices on the counter to represent temporal locality. Is that true? A tendency to access data items located near recently accessed items in memory. But do these things accurately describe the principles that we have studied concerning locality and hierarchy so far? Let's point out the ones that are true and the ones that are not. So you help me fish them out, okay? Because I'm at a loss just as you are. So let's fish them out, shall we? Raise hands. Yes, Mr. Joshua. Which of them do you believe is true?
I'll go for number 4. The tendency to access data items located near recently accessed items in memory.
Okay. Mr. Joshua chooses option 4. All right. Mr. Calvin, which one do you go for?
Please, I also go for the number 4.
Okay. Right. And number 4 has been chosen twice. Okay. What about Mr. Nyako? What do you go for?
I'm also in for number 4.
All right. There is more than one answer here. There is more than one answer. So all of you are voting for number 4. It's not an election. Anti-Vida.
Number 2.
Number 2. Okay. They are making progress. So someone chooses number 2. Others have chosen number 4. Yes. What else? Are there more? Are all correct or there are some that are wrong? Can you even point out which one is totally wrong and has no chance of being correct? Yes, Mr. Calvin.
Please, the first. Hey,
Yes, the first one.
The first one,
Yes.
confusing. Okay.
We just
So the
said
first
it
one.
right now.
Oh, exactly. So then from what we just studied, he is right. So you are correct to say question 2 is right. Fetching a block of data from RAM when the CPU requests a specific address, that's true. If the CPU points to a particular address, that address is where we'll be fetching whatever is held from. And also, keeping frequently used spices on the counter represents temporal locality. That's true. We learned that temporal locality means things that will be frequently used are kept near the CPU so that they can be easily referenced. And the tendency to access data items located near recently accessed items, that is also about spatial locality. So it's also true. We just learned that increasing cache capacity, this means we are not affecting the speed. We are only increasing the capacity. And increasing the capacity means we are going to have more data closer to the CPU at a time. Therefore, it does not really decrease access speed, but if anything, it actually increases it. So that is the incorrect one thus far. So yes, you selected rightly. So these are all correct except that last one. We proceed. This particular one will be covered in the next one. So I want us to vote. The class has been a good one, but I don't think it's satisfactory. There is more we can cover because we are dealing with limited time. I suggest we move on to the next follow-up lesson that has to do with calculating. It's quite simple. Calculating miss rates, etc., etc. And then if we are able to do that, we would have moved quite far on the Stallings chapter 4. I think we would have covered about 70% of it. So let's vote. Do you suggest we stop right here? For just so you know, I suggest we continue. Do you suggest we stop right here, or you suggest we continue with the lesson? Because this slide has ended, but the other is available. Nyako,
For the sake of the
yeah,
world, we should stop right here. Basa
End here for
is
the
playing.
boss, are you sure? How many of you agree with that? If you think we should stop, raise hands. Mr. Nyako, please mute. Yeah. If you think we should stop. Wow, the session has been in session barely an hour and 30 minutes. Hey, okay, I understand. But remember this, if we end here, you are going to meet the lecturer on Sunday. And if you do meet him on Sunday too, he is going to ask questions. So I advise you, please try to complete the rest of the Stallings manual, okay? I tried simplifying the slides the Stallings manual as much as possible without cutting off the important data, maintaining what is needed. And then this is
Read it.
what's ordered. Come again. You read it, okay, I understand. But the rest of you whose hands were not up, let me see. Perhaps we can continue and those who want to go can stay. So those who want us to proceed to the next lesson at once, I think we can cover it in quite a few minutes. It's just some calculations on the AMAT. If you want that, raise hands. Be honest with yourself. Don't lie. If you don't want it, can you that? Mr. Nyako, you want it? Okay. Mr. Emmanuel, you want it? That's good. Mr. Joshua, why? You don't want it, you want it. Are you hot or cold? Okay, looks like a majority wants it. Right, so those who want to leave, you may leave. The recording will be available on YouTube, okay? Those who want it, let's stay. It will not take much time. And once you understand it, you see it's a very simple concept, okay? Right, so it was nice having you and all that. You may leave for now. Bye-bye. Good. So let's move on to that. Let me start sharing.
Your line is breaking, or is it my network?
Mr. Joel, oh no, we are saying that we are going to continue with this session. So quite a few people have voted that they want us to proceed. So those who want to move out, we are allowing you to go. But remember, use the YouTube videos, okay, for better understanding later. It's just some simple calculations. It's not that taxing. All right. So performance modeling and AMAT. AMAT. Average memory access time. Okay, let's move on. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to, one, derive the average memory access time formula from first principles. Calculate the average memory access time for single and multi-level cache systems using hit times and miss penalties. Analyze how inclusive versus exclusive. Okay, right. Auntie Abigail, I'll address that after the session, okay? Right, let's proceed. AMAT for single and multi-level cache systems using hit times and miss penalties. And also analyze how inclusive versus exclusive hierarchy policies affect total storage and set time. And then you evaluate the trade-offs between the transfer rates and the memory cycle times in real-world scenarios. Let's get right into it. Okay, the miss penalty. So let's talk about the key terms that we'll be using here. The miss penalty, the cache miss penalty is the time to fetch data from RAM. So how much time it takes the memory to actually fetch data from RAM for the CPU is called the miss penalty. Then we have the transfer rates. The speed at which data moves between the memory levels is usually measured in bytes per second. So the miss penalty talks about the amount of time it takes to fetch data from the RAM for the CPU. And the transfer rate is the speed at which data moves between different levels of memory and is measured in bytes per second. And we have the cycle time. That's the minimum time between memory access starts. So the minimum time between which memory access starts. And the hit ratio is the fraction of the memory accesses that are found in the cache. A high hit ratio means better performance. So this will mean that since we have a high hit ratio, most of our data is being stored in the cache. Therefore, whenever the CPU is trying to access, we don't lose a lot of time by going all the way to the RAM. We can rather access it from the cache. So the hit ratio, fraction of memory accesses found in the cache, miss penalty, cache miss penalty. This means how much data is not held in the cache that we have to go and take from the RAM. Transfer rate is the speed at which the data travels from one level to another. The cycle time is the minimum time between the memory access. So the library analogy. So think about your CPU using this library analogy and then the storage spaces. Your desk, which is immediately in front of you, is the level 1 cache. This is the closest storage area to you. The library stacks are the main memory. So where all the books are held inside the library become your main memory. Now, when you do a hit, it means you are taking a book that's already on your desk. This is instant because once you reach out, you pick it up. Therefore, we define that as hit time, the time between which you are able to get that book that's already on your table is called the hit time. The miss, on the other hand, are books that are not on the desk and then are stored in your library shelves, the stacks, in the main memory. This takes much longer. So then that's a miss penalty. A miss penalty because it takes you time to go and retrieve that value or that book and come and put it on your table. However, if it was on the table already, it would have been shorter. It says that takes much longer, so we give that a miss penalty. So when we are taking data from the main memory, it's a miss penalty. If we take data from cache, it is a hit time. Now, even with a 90% hit rate, when most of the data is held in cache, and then the ones that we are referencing that are in the RAM are very few, like 10%, this still significantly slows you down. Because for every single time you will go to the stacks to go and retrieve a book and bring it to your table, this slows you down. So increasing the hit ratio is key to faster studying. This means if I have all the books I need prepared on the table, once I'm done with this, I can quickly access this and then move to it fast. So this analogy here describes all these terms to you. The hits are the ones that are in the cache. The miss are the ones that are outside the cache in the RAM. Okay. So let's derive the average memory access time formula. So the memory requests, there are two ways it can pass. It can pass through a hit rate where it is actually in the cache, and then a miss rate where it is not in the cache, but this time it has been retrieved from memory. In order to calculate the miss rate or the time that has to do with miss rates is the hit time plus the miss penalty. So the major formula for the average memory access time is the hit time plus the miss rate times the miss penalty. So it means we are combining how much we successfully pick from the table plus how much we cannot pick from the table, or the rate at which we are not picking from the table, times the time that we lose for every single one. So then hit time plus miss rate times miss penalty. That gives us miss time, by the way. So you see, in other words, it's hit time plus miss time. So then the AMAT, we are still on the revision of the formula. I said we will move fast so we can skip through all these things, okay? But look at it. It says the hit time plus miss rate times miss penalty. The hit time is the level 1 cache access time. Miss rate is the percentage of failed accesses. Failed accesses, in other words, when it has to fetch from lower memory like RAM. So your average memory access time, that's the total performance, is equal to the hit time from the level 1 memory plus 1 minus the hit time. So 1 minus hit time is the miss rate times the time penalty, the miss penalty here. And that gives us the total average memory access time. Keep the formula in mind. Hit time plus miss rate plus times penalty time. The miss rate is equal to 1 minus hit time, since they are rates out of a 1 or out of 1. The large miss penalties amplify small miss rates, causing slowdowns. Investing in faster, smaller cache minimizes miss rates, thereby boosting performance. So here's an example to calculate single level. So now we've been given these values. The level 1 hit time is 1 nanosecond. The miss rate is 5%. So there's a 5% chance that we will miss a value from the table. And then there is the miss penalty, that's 100 nanoseconds. So it means if we have to go and retrieve data from our memory and bring it all the way to the cache, it takes us 100 nanoseconds. Then, if we want to compute the average memory access time, it's going to be the hit time, which is 1 nanosecond, plus the product of the miss rate, which is 5% or 0.05 as a value, times the miss penalty, which is 100 nanoseconds. Computing this will give us 5 nanoseconds for the multiplication. You know board math, right? And then we have 1 nanosecond plus 5 nanoseconds, and it gives us the average memory access time of 6 nanoseconds. What this means is that the penalty that we had to deal with for going to take a value from RAM was 5 nanoseconds. That's how much time it took us. Whereas it only takes us 1 nanosecond to read data that was already in the level 1 cache memory. Therefore, the average memory access time in total becomes the 6 nanoseconds. So it means if we combine all the functions that we did in that particular space. The ones that we were getting from the level 1 cache and the ones that we had to reference, please mute. Please mute. Right. Combining the ones that we had to only take from the L1 cache and the ones that we had to reference lower memory to pick from, we end up with 6 nanoseconds, implying that this is the total or roughly the total amount of time that we spent on that computation. So the parameters are given here. The hit time is 1 nanoseconds. That's the miss. The miss rate, sorry, the L1 miss rate, 5%. So how many times you have to go outside it? And the penalty to RAM is 100 nanoseconds. So we compute it by combining 1 nanoseconds plus the miss rate times the miss penalty. And then we get a penalty to that to be 0.05 times 100, and that gives us 5. So 1 plus 5 gives us 6. Notice that the penalty adds 5 times the hit time despite the low miss rates. So despite, look at this, despite the low miss rates, right? The miss rate is just about 5%. The penalty increases the amount of time that we take on processing by 5 times. So we started with 1 nanosecond, we ended up with 6, despite the miss rate being so low. All this means is that the possibility of we going to retrieve data that is not on the L1 cache is just 5% out of 100. However, it still increased our processing time by what? 6 nanoseconds. That's the total average memory access time. Sorry, to increase the access time by over 5 times, bringing us to an overwhelming 6 nanoseconds. Let's proceed. So it says if a cache has hit a time of 2 nanoseconds, and I'm going to leave you to tackle this one, okay? If a cache has a hit time of 2 nanoseconds, that's the hit time, and the miss penalty of 200 nanoseconds, what must be the miss rate to be able to achieve an overall average memory access time of 4 nanoseconds? Take very good note of the parameters. You'll need some change of subject here. It has a hit time of 2 nanoseconds and a miss penalty of 200 nanoseconds. What must be the miss rates to be able to achieve an overall average memory access time of 4 nanoseconds? Remember that the formula for average memory access time is supposed to be hit time plus miss penalty times miss rates. But you've been given the average memory access time already, so do some change of subjects to work on the values for me, please. Yes, Madam Vida.
Please hold on a minute.
Right. I'm sorry, I even asked. I forgot to ask you because of I said we are moving fast. Sorry. Do you have a question? Oh, you have a question. Mr. Felix Freeman.
Not a question, but the answer.
Come again. The answer.
Not a
Oh,
question,
okay.
but the answer.
That was quick.
I had option 1%.
Option
I
one.
don't know.
All right.
Option
1%. Okay. So he has computed his miss rate to be 1%. Okay. Excellent. Come again. Mr.
Yeah, I also had
Venix.
1%.
Okay. Venix, please mute.
So that means everything here.
I also had 0.01, which is
Plus
1%.
x times 2.
0.01.
X here equals to
1%.
Okay. That's 1%. Okay, we are working fast. That's good, Charlie. A bunch of brainiacs in this thing. All right, I see. So from what we have seen, we know that this formula is will require some manipulation to get us the miss rate, right? So I assume what you did was 2 plus 200 times x being the miss rate, right? Is equal to 4 nanoseconds. And then you did your change of subject. So you have 200 x plus 2 is equal to 4 nanoseconds. So 4 minus 2 gives you 2 nanoseconds is equal to 200 ns. And then you divided both sides by 200. And that should actually lead you to 0.01, which is equivalent to 1%. If you got that, then let's see if we are right on the money. So yes, right on the money. A bunch of powerful minds. That's good. That's good. So this is all the mixed race calculations are about. It is nothing complex, right? So remember, it is used to calculate the total or the average time that the processor uses for its functions. It takes into account how much data it retrieves from the cache memory and how much it might have to retrieve from the main memory as it does the processing. And then it computes an overall time that it uses for, running or for doing these things. Right. Let's move on. Okay, there is not much more to do. There are just 6 slides left and we are done. So those who want to go, hold on, hold your horses. We are right on the time, okay? Right. So it says modern systems use multi-level cache, level 1, level 2, level 3, to bridge the speed gaps. Okay, so we are already aware of how the speed is a problem. It is faster in the level 1 cache, but level 2, blah, blah, blah. But what it does is, if the main memory is doing something, it can use the level 2 cache as a reference point. That way, it can easily retrieve data from that side. And then if the, what do we call it? Level 2 is also doing something, it can use level 1 as a reference point, and then CPU has direct access to the level 1 cache. So this one is also done in order of increasing speed, and then this one is also done in order of increasing size. So then the latency describes the fastness of it, or the access time, how fast the access time is. So it says that as we move towards the top, the main memory is slow. The level 2 is faster, level 1 is even faster, and the central processing units and its processes and the registers and etc. are even faster in the cache. However, in terms of size, and we've already looked at this, memory, the main memory has more capacity. Level 2 cache has smaller, level 1 even smaller, and the CPU has the smallest. The registers have the smallest storage holding capacity. Modern systems use this multi-level cache to bridge the speed gaps. The hierarchical access, if level 1 misses, level 2 is checked first, so that we don't have to jump all the way to main memory. The average memory access time is calculated as level 1 hit time. We already know that. Level 1 miss rate times level 2 access time. So this means if we are using the modern day systems, we don't necessarily have to go all the way to main memory. Because we cannot get it from level 1, we then check level 2. Therefore, the access time for level 2 will now come and replace the access time from our previous formula. Is that clear? So if you are given particular data values, and then the memory checks from level 1, level 2, level 3, if you want to compute the access time, you might consider computing it for level 2 by using level 2's access time first. And then if you have to, you do same for level 3 to find the average if we had gotten it from level 2 and if we had gotten it from level 3. Simple things. So level 2 access time includes level 2 check time and the penalty for an L2 miss. The policy implications, inclusively, level 2 holds level 1 data, is good for coherence, but it uses more space. So level 2 holds level 1 data to use it as a reference point so that we can easily run to it and go and pick it back up. Exclusive will mean that level 2 avoids level 1 data. This one allows for more space, but it can complicate eviction. So it allows for more space, but since it is working on its own and it is not holding data that level 1 can't take, this will mean that level 1 might have to reference higher or lower memory to go and access data. So data is not closer to it, it's more farther away. It makes it harder for you to execute things in the CPU since you have to keep traveling long distances due to the fact that you are trying to conserve space inside your cache memory. All right. So the calculation example, this is a multi-level one. So we've already looked at the basic calculations where we only had to take into account the first. So let's look at it closely. So it says in this question, you've been given your level 1 hit time, and then your level 2 hit time, and then you have been given your RAM. That is your actual miss penalty. So it says that, let's see, they were given a miss rate. I think the miss rate is mentioned later inside the specs section. Right, so it goes further to say that you find the level 2 hit time, and then you add that to the miss penalty, and that gives us the level 2 access time. And you also do same for the level 1 hit time plus the miss penalty from the initial one, and that gives us the average memory access time. So let's look at the actual calculations on this side. So the level 1 hit time is equal to 1 nanosecond. The miss rate has been given to be 10%. Level 2 hit time is 5 nanoseconds. Miss rate has been given to be 30%. So then the main memory penalty, if we go to the main memory, that will be 100 nanoseconds. So you calculate the level 2 hit time. So the level 2 access time is equal to the level 2 hit plus the level 2 miss times the penalty. We know that already, 35 nanoseconds. And then we do the same thing for the level 1 as well. So level 1 hit plus the level 1 miss rate times this time the level 2 access time. So remember that level 2 will reference the higher level above it or the lower level above it, which is the RAM. However, level 1 will also reference what is above it, which is the level 2. Is that clear? So that will give us using the memory, what we've calculated in the level 2 time. So we're going to do that for the level 1 and the level 2, and when we are done, we are going to combine them. Only difference is the penalty for the level 2 is the RAM, because we travel to the RAM to retrieve data. A penalty for level 1 this time is going to be for level 2, since we travel to level 2 to retrieve data for level 1. And then combining these two values gives us 4.5 nanoseconds. So I'll take the calculation again. We first calculate the level 2 access time. We use the level 2 hit time plus the level 2 miss rate times the RAM penalty, since level 2 references RAM. And that gives us 35 nanoseconds. And then we do the same thing. We compute the average memory access time by this time using the level 1 hits, combining that with the level 1 miss rate and multiplying it by the level 2 access time that we've already calculated, since level 1 accesses level 2. And that brings us to 1 plus the level 1 miss rate, which is 0.1, times the level 2 access time, which was given to be 35 nanoseconds. Putting all these together gives us 4.5 nanoseconds. That's the total average memory access time. And this time is a multi-level total average memory access time. Right. So before I move on, are there any questions thus far? Are there any clarifications you want me to make, or it is totally clear? You get it. Our time is up. We have 4 minutes left, and then we have 5 slides too.
Please, I'm a little lost on the calculation.
Oh, okay.
Starting from the L1.
Starting from L1. All right.
Yes, please.
All right. I got you. So you see, in the previous questionnaire, we were only dealing with one level of memory of one. The stack. In other words, we are using another side as the place where we have to go and then retrieve data from. So the closest one initially it could have just been level 1 or level 2. However, in this question, we are saying, what if we are considering access from level 1 as well as level 2 and even the RAM as well? It tells us that if we are taking level 1, and remember that level 1 and level 2, all the cache memory are considered as hits. In other words, it is convenient for the central processing unit when it retrieves data from the cache memory because it's faster and they are closer. However, the RAM, on the other hand, is considered as a penalty. Level 1 will try retrieving data from level 2, while level 2 also tries retrieving data from what? RAM, in this case. So what this means is, in level 1, if I am calculating my miss, if I'm calculating my average memory access time from level 2, let's start with level 2. My formula is going to be level 2 access time from what we know already. So level 2 as the level 2 hits, right? Times or plus, sorry, the level 2 miss times, where does it reference? RAM. So RAM becomes the penalty. So the formula we already know, hit plus miss rate times access time. Whereas where the access time is the penalty from the higher or the lower memory that we are accessing. So we first compute that to get the value for level 2 access time. Once we know level 2's access time, don't forget that level 1 also is there. So we now compute level 1's access time. That will give us the average memory access time in total. And we do that by using level 1 hit rates times level 1 miss rates. Sorry, level 1 hits plus level 1 miss rates times the higher level access time or the lower level access time, which in this case will be what? Level 2. So we first compute level 2 to get the access time that we will use to compute level 1 to get the average memory access time. So that's what you are seeing here. It has been given here. The parameters are that the miss time, the hit time for level 1 is 1 nanosecond, while the miss rate is 10%. Hit time for level 2 is 5 nanoseconds. The miss rate is 30%. The main memory penalty is 100 nanoseconds. So if we are calculating level 2, since level 2 references main memory, we take the level 2 hit rates times the possibility of level 2 missing and having to go to RAM. And we multiply that by the RAM penalty. We are using the RAM penalty because the level 2 references RAM. Is that clear? Mr. Nyakon, is that clear so far?
Yes, please. I'm setting
Good.
now.
All right. So after we get that value, we know that the excess time for level 2 is 35 nanoseconds. But if we are doing that, we are not done. We have to still factor in our level 1. Level 1 will be level 1 hit rates plus the miss rate times the memory that it accesses or it references. And the one it references will be level 2. So we are going to do it times the access time that we already computed for level 2. In other words, how long it takes for level 2's data to be accessed. And that has been computed to be what? 35 nanoseconds. So that becomes a penalty for the level 1. So it becomes level 1 plus that times the access. And that will be 1 plus the rates, which was given to be 10%. So 0.10 times 35, which gives us 4.5 nanoseconds. All right. So in an inclusive cache hierarchy, the total storage capacity of level 1 and level 2 combined is strictly greater than in an inclusive hierarchy, assuming the same physical hardware sizes. Is this true or false? When we are using exclusive means that level 1 data is not held in level 2 cache. So level 1 holds strictly what level 1 can hold, so that level 2 will also have more space to hold what is meant for level 2. It's asking you that, assuming we contain or we maintain the same physical hardware sizes, does the combined capacity of these two things, is it strictly greater than in the inclusive, where data is held for level 1 in level 2? Is that, do you believe this to be true or you believe it to be false? Suggestions, don't worry, we will find out what the answer is. We've come to the end of our lesson, so let's wrap things up, people.
I'll go for
So do you believe this to be true or false? False, okay. Is he the only one going for false, or the others that believe it's false too? Okay, let's see what this entails. So it says that in an exclusive cache hierarchy, total storage capacity of level 1 and level 2 combined is strictly greater than the inclusive hierarchy, assuming the same physical hardware sizes. Yeah.
Oh,
So it says
it's true.
it's true.
Sorry.
Yes. So from our previous few slides, it was true. So it's correct. Inclusive policies duplicate data in both levels, reducing unique storage. Exclusive policies, on the other hand, they ensure data is stored in only one level, maximizing the effective capacity. Now, even though this one complicates the eviction time, it still simplifies how the data is held. In level 1, we hold what is supposed to be in level 1. In level 2, we only hold what is supposed to be in level 2. However, when we do the inclusive, you can have a value stored in level 1, and that same value will be held in level 2, because it was initially held in level 2 and level 1 went to retrieve that data. Therefore, there are duplicates, there are copies. So it means level 2 has to hold level 2 information as well as level 1. Therefore, it reduces its capacity. So it doesn't have much size to accommodate more data, since it has to cater for its data and level 1 data. So it means in an exclusive cache hierarchy, the total storage capacity of L1 and L2 is strictly greater than in an inclusive hierarchy, assuming we maintain the same physical hardware sizes. So here are the trade-offs. Transfer rate versus cycle time. We are at the end. Performance involves cycle time. And this is how fast request starts, limited by the memory physics or the refresh rates. So the cycle time is basically how fast the memory will start processing something. And then it is limited by the memory's physics. It's limited by the type of data or memory we are using and how much refreshing it needs. And then the transfer rate is how many bits per second after starting. So how many bits per second will move after we have already started. And it is limited by the bus. We know that the bus are the data carriers, right? Information carriers. And then the width frequency, the width of frequency talks about just how wide the channel is for data to flow. A high transfer rate is useless with high latency. We talked about latency being speed, reduction in speed. So it means if we have data moving very fast, but the memory only allows, so the processor can move very fast. It processes very fast, but the memory that it keeps referencing only allows it to move slower. Then the speed of the processor is still useless. And the low latency is also wasted with low bandwidth. And low latency is wasted with low bandwidth. So low latency means we have more speed, right? The memory that we are using has it doesn't have lag, therefore it helps us move faster. And it means if you are able to move speed and then the channel through which you are traveling, so you have a lot of water and it is flowing in the channel. However, due to the narrowness of the channel, the water is still moving slow. Despite it's moving fast, but high pressure, yes. But due to the fact that the channel is so small, little water comes at a time. So it means when you have low bandwidth and then your low latency means there is high speed, it becomes useless. That same thing appears when you have high transfer rates and you have high latency, where the memory access is slower. Optimizing a Ghanaian administrative database needs balancing of both. So if you want to balance both, you need to reduce latency for lookups and you increase the bandwidth for bulk exports. So when you are moving data in big amounts, you will have to increase bandwidth so that more data can pass at a time. And then if you are doing simple searches for names, etc., this time you have to reduce latency. But reducing latency often means narrowing the channels through which data will be transported to. So that is where the trade-off comes in. Transfer rate versus cycle time. So let's apply our analogy to real-world scenarios. Okay, yes, real-world scenarios. A government database server in Accra is experiencing high latency. The central processing unit has an L1 cache hit time of 2 nanoseconds and a miss rate of 20%, and it accesses the RAM directly with a miss penalty of 50 nanoseconds. Calculate the average memory access time. Okay, so let's put our brains to work. This is slide 15. So yeah, no. Let's put our brains to work. I'm also putting my brains to work, by the way. Has anyone computed the number one answer? Ladies and gentlemen, are we sleeping or we are here? You had 12.
I think it's 12
12. Please, the units of measurement, 12 what?
nanosecond.
12 nanoseconds. 12 nanoseconds is perfect. And let's remember what these nano and then giga and mega and it's whatever they are, okay? Good. So they said they had 12 nanoseconds, and that is correct. So let's see why. We know the formula to calculate the average memory access time is hit time plus the product of the miss rate and the penalty. And since we are using at this place, it looks like we are using an exclusive model, or at least we do not know yet, because they never included a level 2. Then it will just be 2 plus 20 times 50. 20, not 20, sorry, 0.2, that's the 20%, and 20% times 50. 20 times 50 is what? 1,000, right? However, 0.2 times 50 on the other hand, what will it give us? Is it 100? Am I computing right or I'm computing wrong?
Yeah, it's a hand.
0.2 times 50 will be 10. Yes,
Yeah,
it's
10.
supposed
2
to be,
plus 2.
yes, 10, not 100. So then we are going to have our 2 plus our 10, and that gives us 12 nanoseconds. So you are correct. Excellent. Now, it says if we add a level 2 cache and the hit time is 10 nanoseconds, the local miss rate is 50%. That handles level 1 misses. Does the average memory access time improve? Let's show our work. So let's see that. So show your answers and let's see if it improves or not. Yes, antiviral. This was your answer for the question two. First off, the AMAT, so the average memory access time, what was it?
25.
You got 25.
Yes.
That was after you had, that's the total average memory access time, is that right?
Yeah. Oh.
Okay,
Yes, I think.
all right. So antiviral has 25. I've not completed that yet, so I don't know. So let's hear answers and see. But let's walk through it as the rest work. So let's remember it is hit time. We start with level 2 this time and we bleed into level 1. So it says this time the level 1 does not access RAM directly, but rather the level 2 handles the level 1's misses. Therefore, if we calculate the level 2 access time, we are going to have 10 plus 0.5 times the penalty to the RAM, which is also what? 50, right? So 0.5 times 50, so 5 times 50 with 2,500, you scale that one down by 1 0, and then you have 250. Or 25, sorry, 0.5 times 50 will give us 25. So now that we know that to be 25 for this side, we combine that with the hit time, which is 10, that gives us 35. So we have 35 for the access time here. And we come and go and put that into the total average memory access time. So that will mean that we have our 2 plus 0.2 times the value that we got here right now, which was what? 35, right? So 0.2 times 35, what does that give us? Yes, Mr. Nyako.
Please,
7.
can you, with the question 2, can you demonstrate the calculation
Yeah,
on,
that's right.
on your screen for
Okay,
us?
okay. So please keep the parameters in mind, okay? Where I am using now, let me see. Am I allowed annotations? If I start annotations, they will say it will display a prompt on your screen and then it might interfere with your working. So it means I have to work off screen. Let me see if I can get a PDF blank sheet online to use. Okay. So what are the parameters that we are dealing with? So let me see. It says that, let's start with putting the L2 values down. Since that's a question we are working on the L1 values. So please keep them in mind. If you have a pen and paper, keep them down, okay, so that I can just switch tabs and then work that. So what is the L1?
The
Hits is what?
Hit is 2
hit
nanoseconds.
is 2
Two.
nanoseconds.
All right. And then
And the
the miss
miss rate is
rate,
20%.
This rate is 20%, which is 0.20.
0.2. Excellent. Yes. And then,
Then the memory is
And the
so this for L1.
memory
The penalty
is
for memory access is what?
50 nanoseconds.
All right,
nanoseconds.
50 nanoseconds, like this. And then for the level 2, the hit is what?
The
Hit is 10 nanoseconds.
10 nanoseconds.
So 10. And then the miss rate for level 2 is what?
0.50, which is
0.5.
50%.
Okay, 50%. Thank you. And then since we already know what the RAM memory access time is, if we want to compute for level 2, for the inclusion of level 2, we just have to start here, then use this as memory access time when we get here. So let's do that quickly. So then we know our formula to be the hits. So we are starting with level 2. Let's do that. Level 2 access time, like so. So the level 2 access time is going to be the hits rate, which is 10 nanoseconds, combined with the product of the miss rates, which is what? 0.5. And then, yeah, and then the RAM access time, since it will be referencing the RAM, so times 50, like so. And then that's going to be 10 plus 0.5 times 50 gives us what? 25. Is that all right?
25.
That's 1 over 2 times
Yes.
50. So that gives us 25 nanoseconds plus 10 nanoseconds, which brings us to what? 35 nanoseconds. So this means this is the penalty that we'll be experiencing for the level 2. Now, with that in mind, we can now compute the level 1. The level 1 will be, we use the level 1 access time, which you know to be 2 nanoseconds, and we combine that with the level 1 miss rates. So we said the level 1 miss rate is what? 0.2. That's 20%, so 0.2. And we multiply that by since the reference point this time is level 2, the level 2 access time becomes the penalty. That's 35 nanoseconds. Is that clear? So 2 times 35 will give us what? 70, right? So 0.2 times 35 will give us 7. Am I right?
7. Yes.
It's 7? I think it's 7, right? It's 7, yeah. 2 times 35 is 70, so
Yeah,
divided by
7.
10, that's 7. So we have 2 plus 7, and that gives us
7,
9
9
nanoseconds. So this will be the computation for the second question. Now, the answer to what they ask, what will it be? They ask if it's improved or if it dropped. So it says, initially, what did we get? When you saw for the first one, your answer was what?
25.
12.
It was 12, yeah. The initial one was 12. Yeah, it was 12. 12 nanoseconds for the first one. So then has there been an improvement or there has been a depreciation like it?
There has been a decrement or
Yeah,
a
so there has been
reduction.
an improvement. Exactly. No. So yes, when the access time reduces, that means that there has been an improvement in CPU performance. Access time means that it takes us this amount of time to retrieve information, right? So if the access time drops, this means it takes us less time to retrieve information. So there has actually been an improvement. Is that clear? So from 12 to 9, it means there has been an appreciable improvement. Excellent. So now it says, explain the impacts of transfer rates if the system needs to export 10,000 records simultaneously. So how does transfer rates affect it? If there is a higher transfer rate, what good will it do? And if there is a lower transfer rate, what good will it do? So in simple terms, higher transfer rates will mean that the exportation will happen faster. And then the lower transfer rates will mean that the exportation happens slower. However, this will only be possible if the bandwidth is wide. So if the bandwidth is wide enough to accommodate the speed at which the data will be moving, then a higher transfer rate will mean overall it will be faster. If the memory points that we are referencing from, they have low latency, it means they have faster access times. That will mean that all things being equal, then the simultaneous pushing of data will be very fast, provided we have high transfer rates, low latency, and high bandwidth. However, if we have high transfer rates and we have high latency, that will mean memory access time will be slow. And then if we have low bandwidth, it means the channel through which we are transporting data is also small. So pushing 10,000 records simultaneously will take a very long time for that to what do we say complete. Okay, so that is basically it. So here are the key takeaways from the lesson today, and I hope it has been helpful, and I'm sure you are glad you stayed. So the average memory access time formula is the hit time plus the miss rate times the miss penalty, and then it talks about a model's performance. And then the 90 on 10 rule means 90% fast accesses, but 10% penalty still dictates overall speed. Multi-level benefits. Level 2 cache reduces the level 1 miss penalty. It means, you see, in the question that we just looked at, when we had to go all the way to rank, the penalty was 50 nanoseconds. That's how much time we lost in a single processing stage. However, when we reduced it to level 2, the penalty we had to deal with was just 35. You see what was happening there? It means it reduces how much we have to move. But the trade-off is we will have to do away with level 2 cache space, since it will be holding level 1 data as well. Therefore, it only has so much space to hold its own assigned data values. So there's a trade-off between speed and then space in this one. The design choices, inclusive versus exclusive policies affect storage capacity, where inclusive allows for less storage but faster speed, and exclusive storage allows for more storage but complicated evictions. And then beyond latency, cycle time and transfer rates determine throughout for bulk operation. Is it throughput? Is that a true word? Is this a mistake? Okay. Determine throughput. I didn't notice that, sorry, for bulk operations. So remember, latency talks about the time wasted in accessing from memory spaces. High latency is higher time wasted. Low latency is smaller time wasted. And the cycle time refers to how fast the access starts, and the transfer rate talks about how fast data moves. And the bandwidth talks about how wide the channel through which the data is moving is. Thank you for your time, ladies and very, very fine gentlemen. It has been a great night. I hope you have benefited from this lesson. See you tomorrow with, I don't know, is it Mr. Isaac? All right. Have a great one. Goodbye.
Hello, Mr. Prince. Please remember to
Oh,
drop the